I sometimes wonder, were we actually better off when we were broke? Look, I'd be the first to admit there's very few positives about getting old. There's not many. In fact, it's very, very few, and I should know. One of the few positives, one of the few good things about getting old is that you've seen a lot of stuff, and maybe you've done a lot of stuff, for good or ill. And you can compare and contrast between various things now and back in the day. And I was thinking about this the other day, and thinking about Ireland, as I do very, very often, in fact, most of the time. There was a viral thing that popped up a while ago. You might remember it was flying around the media landscape. How often do men think about Rome? And it turned out quite a lot. And I think that resonates with a lot of men, because a lot of men would have an idea of what Rome was and the end times, and how it collapsed, and what it was, and then what it became, and how it ended. So it is a kind of a salutary tale there for how the mightiest empire can get to the peak of, in world terms, of power and largesse and in standards of living, etc., and then can essentially just die off and end in ignominy. Now, that resonates with a lot of people today, because many people today feel that they're living in the last days of Rome in one way or another, because a lot of what we used to take for granted is no longer taken for granted. A lot of the certainties that certainly the previous generation, maybe two, had in their lives are now gone. And we are probably the first generation now to be materially less well off than our parents. I'm talking more to the younger people there. They would certainly be in that bracket. And they have, in many ways, especially in Ireland, been locked out of the conversation in terms of getting on the property ladder, starting a family, being able to make a life, being able to contribute to society. They really have gotten a raw deal. And it got me thinking about the dissonance between what we are being told, what we are being spun, and it is propaganda by the government, by the mainstream media, by the EU, that everything's marvellous, wonderful, we've never had it so good. Look at all these shiny new buildings and glass and stuff, it's all marvellous. And the other side of it is that many, if not most people now in Ireland, aren't really feeling it. They're not sensing it. It's not resonating with them, because in many ways their lives are shittier than my generation or the boomers were. And we didn't have it easy. We never thought we had it easy. We didn't. I mean, I remember when I came out of school in the mid-80s, it was a pretty bleak landscape at the time. It's not good. The government was broke, pretty much broke all the time, it seemed, constantly trying to rob from Peter to pay Paul, and all this was potholes in the roads, and there's nothing fancy going on. But we had a huge wealth in other ways. We had a huge wealth in society. We had a huge wealth in just a place to be and people to be around, and a lifestyle of community spirit that didn't need money. It was something different. It wasn't a financial thing. It was a community spirit thing. It was a people thing. It was an Irish thing. Back when being Irish was taken for granted, everybody knew what it was. We didn't have to do a 2-week or 3-month course to learn what it meant. We all knew. We didn't have to be taught. We instinctively knew. It was in the air we breathed. It was in the people we met. It was in everything in our daily lives. But now, when we're supposedly rich, we're constantly being told we're one of the richest nations in Europe. But we haven't got any of that stuff anymore. All of that has been taken away. So some people, I would argue, some people are getting very rich out of this modern version of Ireland Inc. And it is pretty much a corporation now. It's not a country. It's not a society. Whereas most people are really suffering. They're grinding. They're working long hours. Their commute is hours on top of their work day. They're to the pin of the collar paying bills, paying the mortgage if they have a mortgage, if they're lucky enough to have the mortgage, or rent. Their kids can't leave home. The young people are stuck in their parents' box room or their childhood bedroom in their 30s. nowhere to go, nowhere to rent. They might be working their asses off, but that money and those wages, even though it might look good on paper, can't buy you the basics. So who's rich, really? Who's rich? Who's better off? I would argue that at least in my day, and as I said, one of the advantages of getting older is that you can compare and contrast. I mean, in real time, really, having been there. It's not like you read books and you're trying to kind of contrast one thing, but it's not like reading ancient Greece and trying to contrast, the Spartans versus the Athenians. No, this is real life stuff. And I think even though we didn't have it easy, and we didn't have life, everything handed to us, I think we had a way better time of it. A way better time of it. With all the unemployment, with all the emigration at the time, with all the difficulties that we had, with the lack of services. We had far better health services than we have now. Far better. In the old days, you could see a doctor, and often a doctor would come to your home if you needed. You could easily, and did. I remember that. Now, distant memory, doesn't happen unless you're prepared to pay a fortune, maybe to someone. Might. People had free time. They weren't driving 2 hours to work and 2 hours home. There was a family atmosphere. There was a communal atmosphere. It was very, very relaxed in a lot of ways. And look, I'm not talking about some rose-tinted thing. There was plenty of problems, and the government never had enough money. And you know what? Was that good, in a way? Was that good that they didn't have enough money? Because they couldn't spend what they didn't have. They couldn't make stupid promises. They couldn't just throw money around the whole world and at all kinds of peoples from all parts of the globe. They didn't have it. We had the trochra boxes, put in 2 pence or 10 pence or whatever, 50 pence if you're rich. And that was it. And people felt, they got their virtue out of that. We still had a framework in terms of religion. Now, you can agree or disagree with that, but it was a framework. It kind of held the kind of a it was a glue, kind of held things together. And now we have dismantled the whole apparatus. The young people have been completely shafted, and the government is awash with money, and yet we, the Irish, are not seeing it. Our health service is in a disastrous state. The new hospital, Children's Hospital, is a prime example of pure government waste and mismanagement. It's on an obscene scale. But trying to get basic treatments in hospital now, on a waiting list with hundreds of thousands of other people waiting for years, possibly. You can't get a house. Housing market is absolutely in crisis mode. We didn't have that back when we were broke. The health service, when we were broke, actually worked way better than it does today. The education system, way better back then, yes. I remember we had large class sizes, but the teaching was good. It was methodical. We were taught real things. Now it's all namby-pamby woke nonsense. Complete nonsense. The crime. Do I have to mention the crime? The crime is off the charts now. And the types of crime is off the charts now. I remember, and I can say this because, I was there. I'm not reading this so it's not an article I read. I lived it. And the crime that we did have crime, of course, but nothing on the scale that we have now. Nothing remotely on the scale that we have now. So, again, if that is what this new influx of riches has brought us, well, I don't know. Could we do without it? I think we could. When we were broke, again, we had a much tighter community. People looked out for each other a lot more. And the crime, whilst it was always crime, it was nothing on the scale. There wasn't stabbings every day. The sexual assaults weren't off the charts as they are today. There weren't old people getting absolutely assaulted in hospitals and in old folks' homes. No. Were we better off? Were we better off? And I could go on and on and on. And the takeaway from all this is, I think maybe we were. Weird thing. It's a weird thing to say. When the government did not have access to massive amounts of money, they couldn't squander massive amounts of money. But unfortunately today, with this Ponzi scheme economy that they're operating, this tax haven economy that they're operating. They are getting money seemingly from places where they don't have to do a lot of work except just exist and make sure the tax codes suit certain corporations. Meanwhile, the ordinary Irish in-house indigenous industries like tourism, like farming, like fisheries and more, they're decimated. They're in crisis and it's getting worse and the government doesn't care. It's counterintuitive. But I think, reflecting on it, we here in Ireland were better off when we were broke.